Welcome to the Pulse Point News. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon for more updates and thrilling short scenes. International trade is a delicate balance, but sometimes a single move can disrupt everything. In early 2025, the United States shocked its closest partners by slapping a 25% tariff on all vehicles imported from Mexico. This was no minor tweak. It threatened decades of economic integration. The move, effective April 2nd, was a direct response to growing fears over China's dominance in the electric vehicle market. The US had already imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs, but targeting Mexico, a key North American partner, was unprecedented. The goal: stop Chinese automakers from using Mexico as a backdoor into the US market, especially with a 200% tariff on Chinese brand cars made in Mexico looming. The announcement blindsided Mexico, where the auto industry is vital to the economy. For years, Mexico had thrived as North America's manufacturing hub, leveraging its skilled workforce and proximity to the US. Even Canada, also fighting Chinese EV imports, was caught off guard by the broad tariff on Mexico. The fallout was immediate. Automakers with huge investments in Mexico scrambled to rethink their strategies. The tariff undermined the very trade agreement meant to prevent such barriers. Suddenly, the future of North American trade was in question. Could the decades-old partnership survive this new era of economic nationalism? The intricate web of cross-border supply chains now faced its toughest test in a generation. No one knew what would happen next. Before the tariff, Mexico's electric vehicle industry was booming. Since 2020, EV production had skyrocketed 30-fold, with over 200,000 units rolling out in 2024 alone. Mexico's skilled workforce and tariff-free access to the US and Canada made it the perfect launchpad for global automakers. Billions poured in, fueling high-quality jobs and technological progress. States like Nuevo León and Puebla became innovation hubs, attracting both legacy automakers and startups. The future looked bright, until the US tariff hit. The 25% levy slammed the brakes on Mexico's EV dream. Nearly 80% of Mexican-made vehicles were destined for the US. Now, that lifeline was threatened. The foundation of Mexico's EV strategy, tariff-free US access, was shattered. Optimism gave way to dread as the industry's rapid growth ground to a halt. The booming sector had hit a wall. The entire country braced for impact. Nothing captured the new trade reality like the collapse of BYD's mega-factory plan. The Chinese EV giant had pledged $3 billion for a state-of-the-art plant in Mexico, promising 150,000 cars a year and thousands of jobs. Mexico saw this as a major win, signaling its rise as a global EV hub. But as US rhetoric hardened, the project came under threat. Washington made it clear, Chinese automakers couldn't use Mexico to bypass US trade barriers. In July 2025, BYD shelved the project, citing geopolitical issues, a direct nod to US pressure. Even Beijing hesitated, delaying approval over security and IP concerns. The project was squeezed from both sides until it collapsed. For Mexico, the loss was devastating. Jobs, investment, and prestige vanished overnight. The message to other investors was clear: Mexico was no longer a safe bet for North American access. The empty site became a symbol of lost opportunity. The high price of being caught between two superpowers was now painfully clear. The dream had dissolved into a harsh lesson in global politics. Mexico didn't just watch its auto industry crumble, it fought back. State leaders launched emergency tax cuts and incentives to keep factories afloat. Nuevo León sought new markets in Europe and Asia, while Guanajuato formed a war room to protect investments. Puebla's governor pledged to buy hundreds of locally made vehicles to support workers. These were acts of resilience, not just policy. Nationally, Mexico made a surprising choice. It refused to retaliate with tariffs on Chinese EVs. While the US and Canada built barriers, Mexico kept its doors open, hoping to attract Chinese investment for its domestic market. This strategy was risky, balancing US ties with a pivot toward China. Local leaders fought to save jobs tied to US exports, while the national government courted Chinese automakers. Mexico found itself walking a tightrope between two giants. The scramble revealed a nation redefining its economic identity. The stakes had never been higher. The collapse of BYD's Mexico project didn't end China's global EV ambitions, it redirected them. Chinese automakers, led by BYD, pivoted to South America, especially Brazil. BYD began building a $1 billion plant in Bahia, producing cars, trucks, and battery materials. Other Chinese firms followed, drawn by Brazil's low tariffs and stable investment climate. As the US raised barriers, Brazil rolled out the red carpet. China began building a parallel EV ecosystem in the southern hemisphere, independent of North American politics. For Mexico, this meant lost jobs and investment as capital flowed south. The global supply chain was realigning, fast. At the heart of the crisis is the USMCA, North America's flagship trade deal. Designed to ensure tariff-free trade, it requires 75% of a vehicle's parts to be made in the region. The new U.S. tariffs on Mexican vehicles bypassed this agreement, undermining its core purpose. Mexico and Canada were left frustrated and uncertain. The deal meant to guarantee stability now fueled confusion. Mexico faced a dilemma: attract Chinese investment or preserve U.S. ties. U.S. and Canadian officials feared Mexico could become a Trojan horse for Chinese goods. Talks began to tighten rules even further. With a mandatory USMCA review looming in 2026, the future of the agreement is in doubt. The trade pact meant to unite North America is now a source of division. The entire framework is on the brink. The North American auto crisis is more than a trade dispute. It's a turning point. Mexico's economy, deeply tied to autos, faces an uncertain future. No other market can replace U.S. demand. Job losses and instability loom. Major automakers have paused investments and the dream of a high-tech future is in jeopardy. Mexico's strategy, courting China while hoping to mend U.S. ties, is a risky balancing act. Meanwhile, the Americas are splitting into two economic blocs, the U.S. and Canada walling off from China, while China builds influence in South America. The era of seamless globalization is ending, replaced by regional competition. The 2026 USMCA review will be pivotal. Can North America repair its partnership, or will the bloc fracture? Mexico's next moves, welcoming Chinese investment or yielding to U.S. pressure, will shape its destiny. South America's rise as a Chinese EV hub is another trend to watch. The choices made now will define the hemisphere's economic future.